Holy Gospel according to St. Matthew, the 11th chapter.
Glory to you, Lord.
When John heard in prison what the Messiah was doing, he sent word by his disciples and said to him, "Are you the one that is to come, or are we to wait for another?" Jesus answered them, "Go and tell John what you hear and see. The blind receive their sight, the lame walk, the lepers are cleansed, the deaf hear, the dead are raised, and the poor have good news brought to them. And blessed is anyone who takes no offense at me." As they went away, Jesus began to speak to the crowds about John. "What did you go out into the wilderness to look at? A reed shaken by the wind? What then did you go out to see? Someone dressed in soft robes? Look, those who wear soft robes are in royal palaces. What then did you go out to see? A prophet? Yes, I tell you, and more than a prophet. This is the one about whom it is written, 'See, I am sending my messenger ahead of you, who will prepare your way before you.' Truly I tell you, among those born of women, no one has arisen greater than John the Baptist. Yet the least in the kingdom of heaven is greater than he." The Gospel of the Lord. I feel like oftentimes I stand up here and say to you all something to the effect of, well, today I'm going to take issue with Jesus. Today I'm not going to do that. I fully adore the juxtaposition of our readings today. We have the imprisoned John the Baptist, a scraggly, beaten man who's having a bit of a crisis of faith, and he desperately queries the universe with the question that's on everyone's mind. Are you the one we've been waiting for, or shall we wait for another? And this picture sits right next to that of a young Jewish girl whose response to the absurd and epic angel visitation is that of calm and trust, and she responds with one of the greatest songs in human history, singing, "My soul magnifies the Lord, and my spirit rejoices. Be it unto me according to thy word." Paired together, these two stories are doubt and promise, old and new, death and life, and the combination of them is so very, very real. John's life began with a bang, having been prophesied into existence by an angel. John leapt with joy in his mother's womb the first time that he heard Mary's voice. He grew up a prophet, preaching repentance and preparing the way for Jesus. Eventually, he even baptized Jesus, the Messiah, the Son of God, the Prince of Peace. John's life is full to the brim with promise. He is a man who is not afraid to speak his mind and seems to trust in the providence of God. What a story his life has been. And yet here we find John squatting in a prison cell, awaiting to be beheaded. This isn't how stories should go. We journey from darkness to light, from despair to joy, from death to life, from doubt to certainty, not the other way around. John's story is all backwards. Has it all been for naught? Are you the one we've been waiting for? Are you the one I thought you were? Are you the one I sacrificed everything for? Are you? There's such fair questions on John's mind. Now, if you'll just suspend John for a moment while we look at Mary's life. Mary's life began modestly and unassumingly. No big bang for her. Her life is like that of any other Jewish girl in ancient Israel. She follows in the footsteps of generations of women before her. She knows her place. She fetches the water. She tends the children. She is dutiful. Until the day the angel appears and everything changes. I guess that the gravity of her stunning response of, "Be it unto me according to thy word," was likely unknown to her at the time. But Mary's story has us dreaming wild dreams and patting our bellies with anticipation. She must have looked at many times at her growing belly and asked with wonder, "Are you the one we've all been waiting for? Are you?" She would birth the Savior of the universe. She would watch him grow into himself and beam with pride at his conviction and compassion. Her insides would slowly collapse in agony when he was taken from her and nailed to the cross. and she would fall to her knees on Easter morning in thanksgiving and praise. Oh, Mary, in her life, she wept tears of love and worry and pride and grief and longing, as only mothers can. John and Mary's lives together should confound us and rattle us and shake up our faith. I mean, what do we make of these stories set before us this Advent season? Because essentially John gets his head chopped off. Sure, the blind saw, the deaf heard, the poor received good news. But those joyful stories weren't John's. They never became his story. The justice and the peace and promise he preached about all of his life were never his to taste. And certainly Mary does get to live into Easter morning. However, she still had to witness her son get executed. Her story gets a happily ever after ending because the cross didn't have the last word and the stone was rolled away, and she finally held her son again in her arms, and the sun rose bright again in the sky. However, withstanding Easter morning, it's hard to say which one of these had an easier life. Neither are really okay stories. Likely, if we're paying attention, we are also asking, Jesus, are you really the one? Is this really how it should be? Because there's a lot that stinks in their stories. But maybe that's why we need these two to come and tend to us when we are about to meet Jesus again. Because many of our stories aren't tied up beautifully in a neat little bow. Because we're just trying to make it through December. Because prison bars don't always give way, doubts don't always resolve themselves, justice doesn't always arrive in time, questions don't always receive the answers we hope for. I desperately want Jesus to go to John and say, yes, of course I'm the one. It's all going to work out just fine in the end. Just wait and see. Instead of sending the disciples back with their vague, unhelpful answer of, let me tell you some things that are going on outside of prison. I desperately want Jesus to offer him some assurance, some hope, some something. After all, it's almost Christmas time. I mean, for John it's not. But couldn't Jesus have offered some proof? And yet there is no closure for John. And when closure does come, there is no comfort. And while Mary has no idea what's in store for her after she says yes, we know it's going to be a rocky road. These aren't clean, polite, neat stories. And I believe the gift that we get in leaving them messy is the revelation that our not okay is okay. Maybe Jesus, in his divine forbearance and his ability to circumvent time, knew that we humans would clamor for answer and reasoning and evidence, and so he didn't answer John. Maybe Jesus already knew that sometimes there just isn't an answer. And maybe Jesus knew that his answer didn't really matter. Maybe it's our answer that matters. Maybe Jesus' silence, Jesus' acquiescence, Jesus' submission is his unstated response. You decide. Am I the one who is to come? You decide. Am I enough? Will you let me soothe your heart? Will you let me rattle your life? Will you tell my story through your broken and beautiful life? You decide. The stories we see and hear, the stories we live, invite us to honor doubt, despair, and silence as reasonable reactions to a broken world, to create sacred space for grief, mourn freely, and rage against injustice, to let joy be joy, sorrow be sorrow, and horror be horror, to sing with Mary and to rage with John, to feel deeply because God feels deeply. Because no matter how desperate the moment, we are promised that time is on the side of hope. Whether it's waiting out a prison sentence or ticking off the 9 months of pregnancy. Time is on the side of Jesus. Is he the one we've been waiting for? I can almost hear Jesus whisper in love, you decide. But yes.